Alright, so for the top and bottom, so that's 84 and 8. $84. $34 3/4. $34 3/8. So that's 34 5/8. Okay, so this is a horizontal line because I use the level. So from there to there, we're talking 1/4 inch, which means the ceiling is out by 1/4 inch over 8 feet, which is really nothing. But now that I have my measurements, I'm going to bring my piece of drywall. I'm going to lean it up against the wall. Remember, we're going to orientate the piece of drywall to the way that we're going to install it. Don't work backwards. Guys, I've already talked about this in another video. Go ahead and check out the card. But put your drywall here. The bottom is going to be on the bottom. The top you're going to cut to fit. And you're going to just take the entire thing and put it up. Don't work on this side. Do everything vice versa. Come over here because you're going to run into problems. And I know this through lots of experience. Okay, so I've measured from that end to here, and the bottom 84 and an 8. Now guys, drywallers are a lot faster than me. They can hold a tape and then run the knife. I'm not that good at this, so I'm going to use a piece of drywall as a straight edge. So this is the factory edge. This is a cut, the edge I cut off. So since this is a factory edge here, it's going to be straight. And you're not trying to go all the way through. You're just trying to score the paper so it snaps. And then just cut the back side, and then you have your piece. Alright, for the other side, I'll measure off at 34 and 3/8. The other end 34 and 5/8. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that long piece there, which is, I believe it's a full length. I'm going to take this piece outside, put it on the ground, and then I'm just going to score a line from pencil mark to pencil mark, snap it, and then we'll come back when we're all ready to go here. Okay, so I got the piece of drywall up. I'm going to show you just a couple of screws. This piece is a lot easier than doing the ceiling. But when it comes to putting in your screws, I put marks for where the studs are. Now in this case, because there's wood up on the wall, technically it's a shear wall, it doesn't really matter. But as good practice, I always like to hit studs anyway. So when you put your screws in, you want the screw just to catch on the paper. Now, I don't have a dimpler. I don't do this enough to warrant a dimpler, but run your finger over the screw and you should not feel anything. If you feel anything, that means the screw is too far out, and then you're going to see this later on when you tape in mud. But countersink it just slightly, and that's fine. So for code, I believe drywall screws is every 18 inches. All right, so here are the two passes. Now, initially, I was told it's just the toilet down there was leaking, but there's another toilet here that was leaking as well, so I had to cut, and I had to cut out the flange and re-pipe it. That was a whole other issue in itself. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start taping. So, because we have a line here and a line here, I'm probably going to just go over both of them so it'll be one consistent coat of mud opposed to trying to save that. I think you're going to see it, but with everything done now, the next step is to tape. So really quickly, we'll look at one thing. So being a one-man show here, I dropped the corner, I broke it off, so I just threw in a piece. So make sure that you have nothing sticking out like this stuff here. Make sure you pull all of this stuff out, and then you have no tails or anything sticking out, because you will see that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to tape the ceiling on my own. I'm going to do the corner, and then we'll come back when I'm ready to do this area and this area here, just because to film overhead is going to be tough. So we'll just do the easy portion of this job, but it doesn't matter ceiling or wall, it's all going to be the same. Alright, so this is my loading mud. That is the box of the loading mud. I also have a bucket of water. So this is my mixer, and I just use my cordless drill. So I'm going to mix this up. There's no water. This is loading mud. In my opinion, loading mud should just go on as is, but I'm also not a drywaller. So one thing, because this box has been opened before, make sure if there's dry little chunks, skim off the very top and then use the mud underneath. If you have a whole ton of dry chunks, probably the mud is no good to use. It's just going to take you way too much time to get all the contamination out of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix up this bucket of mud, and then I'm going to start to cut my tape and get everything ready to go for taping. Alright, so I'm going to tape this line here, and then I'll do the one vertical as well. So for the tape, hold it about half the width of the tape past the joint. Okay, I always use scissors. Don't tear the tape, because what's going to happen is you're going to have an end that's going to be easy to catch. And now with the tape here is I'm going to dip it into my bucket of water. While the tape is soaking, I'll now take my mud and go over. Now you don't want a thick layer. But you also don't want any holes. If you have a hole underneath the tape where there's no mud, it's not going to stick. The tape is not going to stick. I'm using a plastic 4-inch knife, and you just want to go wide enough for the tape to be embedded. You don't want to go really wide with the first pass with this loading mud. The idea here is we're just getting tape up on the wall, and then we want to embed the tape. Alright, now with the tape, push it on the wall. So there is a line down the middle of the tape that you can fold it over for when you do a corner, which I will show you. Guys, when it comes to wetting the tape, some people don't do it. Again, I'm a 95% self-taught drywaller. Okay, so with the tape on, I say start from the middle and then gently just push the tape into the mud. If you go too aggressively, the tape will slide. And if you start from the end, you can also have the same problem. And now from here, pressure will be tighter on this side, and then we're just going to feather the edge off. Don't worry if it doesn't look all that pretty, because this is only the taping phase. So when I do my tape, I go slightly short so it doesn't overlap. If it overlaps, it just means you got a bigger jump to make with your mud. So also with your tape, make sure you don't have like any debris, any particles of dried mud or sand or pebbles or anything of that nature, because that's going to cause a hump later. And you just want a thin coat of mud over the tape to encase it. This is one of those things that just don't overthink it. Alright, so this is the first coat that is done. So you can already see the white. That means it's already starting to dry. So this is the top corner. It's an inside corner, so what I did is I took the tape, I folded it over, and then I made sure it's nice and tight, and then I went from one end to the other, get all the air out, and it's just a rinse and repeat. Otherwise, I'm going to leave this now for a couple days. I'm going to come back. But what you want is you want to make sure that everything is completely dry. So something like this here. It's going to take longer to dry than the other stuff, but that's perfectly fine too. And one other thing, a lot of times don't meddle with something. If it's okay, leave it. Don't try to make it better, because you're probably just going to make it worse. But we're going to come back when I'm ready to do the next coat of mud.